All right, hello everyone. It's Alex and Kara again for a comics chat. So full disclosure, this is being filmed on June 25th. And due to all the weird stuff about opening up the branches, we we spent most of the month not doing a video on Pride, and we really wanted to. So even though this will probably go like on the air after June, we did squeak this in under the wire. So happy Pride, everybody. Today we are going to focus on LGBTQIA comics. And I believe Kara has the first one, if she would like to get started, as always.
All right, so our first one that we are going to do, that we're going to talk about, is the Backstagers. So this is a new one for me, and I really loved it. So basically it starts off, Jory is a new kid at an all-boys prep school, and his mom basically tells him that he has to join a club and like get involved. So he is mildly interested in drama club. So he goes to a meeting, but then he meets the Backstage crew, and he helps them round up this like mutant monster rat, and learns that there's kind of like this deeper like magical world like behind Backstage. So he decides that rather than being an actor, he wants to join the Backstagers. This is like a really quirky, funny story about just like being an awkward teenager, as well as there's the mystery of like what is really backstage. They tell these stories of like, oh, in 1972, these kids disappeared and never came back. And I also really enjoyed the cast of characters. You have Jory, who's the new kid. There's Hunter, he's like the builder of the crew, and he's also Jory's romantic interest. Then we've got Beckett, who is like this mad lighting genius, and the first time we see him, he's like plugging wires together and like laughing maniacally. He's also transgender. We have Aziz, who is the straight man, and by that, I just don't mean that he's straight, although he is. I mean it like in the comical sense of like he's kind of like the most level-headed person of the group.
He's the foil for the jokes.
Right, exactly. And then his best friend, Sasha, who is like, he looks like he's the youngest, but I think he's actually one of the oldest, and he's described as being like the embodiment of light and energy. When we first see him, he's got one of those mutant rats like in his arms and is calling it Friendo. And so he is kind of like the opposite of Aziz in that sense. This is one of those we talked about last week about normalizing, and this is one that really just like normalizes being LGBTQ, and it's more about the group as a whole and like how they work together.
Also, it should be normalizing going from being an actor to being a stage crew member.
Right.
As somebody with an acting degree can attest, sometimes the backstage stuff is 50 times more fun, more useful, more helpful, and you don't have to perform for people.
Mm-hmm. I really liked the humor between like the actors and the Backstagers, and how like the actors are more dramatic, and then after Jory leaves the Backstagers, you know, for the first time, you know, they're saying like, oh, we'll never see him again. He went to be an actor. So I really just liked the whole world that was created there. And this is by James Tynion IV. And I think we're going to talk about him later today as well.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
All right. And then, so I guess it's my turn. So the one of the books that I want to talk about, this one is appropriate for, I'd say it's even appropriate for 5th, 6th, 7th grade. It's called The Prince and the Dressmaker. So it's around early 1900s. It takes place in France, but the main character, he's the Crown Prince of Belgium, who moonlights essentially as a very early drag queen. Actually, no, drag queen's not, I don't think is the appropriate term for him, because he is gender fluid, but he is attracted to a woman in this because he hires the dressmaker to make him dresses. He just prefers. He feels so much more comfortable. He feels more like himself when he is wearing. He becomes obsessed with opera costumes and ballet costumes, and wants that for himself. So you'll start to see some examples in here. But then it becomes just this great love story, also between a crown prince and a commoner, especially when his parents are trying to marry him off for alliances, and he's not interested in that at all. I'm not going to spoil much more after that, but it does have a really neat plot line with the dressmaker too, about her changing alliances and kind of feeling used, kind of just because sometimes it feels like he cares more about the dresses and being himself than the relationship that's budding. And they, of course, there's that hurdle. But you may have noticed the art style of this is very cartoony. It's got a little bit of the Raina Telgemeier, less of the dot eyes and more of like wide open eyes, but it's very cute, very vibrant, has a super wholesome ending. Not all stories like this. What's up?
I feel like the art in this does a really good job of just like also conveying the tone here as well.
And again, it's extremely readable for younger audiences. Just because, again, it normalizes some things that should just be normalized. Like most of the book, the drama revolves around him being afraid of being outed, which is pretty much the universal experience of anyone on the LGBTQIA spectrum, and just wanting to be accepted for being exactly who you are. Which, yeah, but it's a very cute read, very quick read. I highly suggest it.
I started this one as well, and I really liked it, but I think I got distracted by something else. So I'll
does happen.
Back to it. Yeah.
I think everyone's having trouble focusing these days. So, guys, if you don't manage to finish any of these books, that's a-okay. We're all in the same boat.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So our next one that we're talking about is Batwoman. This in tone, this is a lot different from the rest of the comics that we're talking about today, but I thought that this would be an important one to talk about because she is one of the most high-profile gay superheroes. I think in either DC or Marvel.
The only one I'd say that even comes close is Deadpool, and Marvel dances around whether he's pansexual or not sometimes.
Right. And there's Wonder Woman. She is, when they did the Rebirth reboot, they did acknowledge that she was bisexual, but they kind of, I don't know, they kind of glossed over that as just like part of her history. Whereas with Batwoman, it's really, the focal point here. So she is Kate Kane, and she's also the cousin of Bruce Wayne. And this is something that is relatively new to her character. She was rebooted during the New 52. That was when she was reintroduced as a lesbian. Previously, she had been known as Kathy Kane, and in the beginning of Batman comics, she was one of Batman's love interests, although not his cousin at that point. Like I said, she's one of the most high-profile gay characters, and I think the only one that, well, other than Deadpool, as you said, that's actually a titled character. And this one begins after the first storyline in Detective Comics, where she's also a main character. So it kind of picks up. Detective Comics goes through some of her personal relationship history, and then this one picks up right after that. At the beginning here of The Many Arms of Death, it explores Batwoman's past again, the death of her mother and her twin sister, and then also her experience getting discharged from the military during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And then the main storyline picks up with Batwoman chasing a criminal gang called the Many Arms of Death. This leads her to Coriana Island, which she refers to as the Lost Year, where she spent a year here. And it's something that she doesn't really she hasn't talked about with the Bat family or anyone else she knows back in Gotham. And during her chase, when she comes back, she has to face some of her past deeds and old relationships that she had there as well. She also has Julia Pennyworth as her sidekick. And there's a little bit of tension here because we find out that Julia is actually reporting to Batman. One of the big differences between Batwoman and Batman is that Batman has his one rule, and Batwoman, since she has been in the military and her father is in the military, she has less qualms about killing when you have to.
You said Pennyworth too. Is she related to Alfred?
Yep, she's related to Alfred. Yeah, so I think they've been trying to insert some more like peripheral characters that way. I think in another Bat Family series, they had a couple relatives of Lucius Fox as well. Yeah, so this would be a good superhero one to read for Pride Month. If you're looking for one, she also has a standalone with like other villains. I saw that she had one with the Lady of the Lake, not the Lady of the Lake. I'm sorry, La Llorona, the ghost from folklore.
The Bat Family generally also, over the past few decades, has been one of the more LGBTQ forward series, because you always had Catwoman's sexuality has always been up in the air, I guess, but pretty clearly bisexual. Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn also have had a relationship before, even in the animated series cartoon, which I watched in like the 6th grade. So, and it didn't really, like, it wasn't subtle, which like now as a grown up, I appreciate that it didn't really gloss it over. So that's one thing I've always liked about Batman and the Bat Family, is that there's room for everyone.
Right, exactly.
All right. And so so the last book that we're going to talk about is called Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. And this is some high school drama, like drama. So it's about the main character. She is dating the popular girl, Laura Dean, but right at the beginning, she goes to a dance and sees Laura Dean making out with somebody else, and then like gets drunk, pukes in a donut shop, wakes up feeling terrible. 2 days later, gets back together with Laura Dean because Laura Dean talks to her. Which really, this is just your standard high school, one person with zero self-esteem and one person who's a raging narcissist, and that's how basically the entirety of pop, punk rock, and other things have started, is that type of high school relationship drama. But it's like we mentioned earlier, and we mention all the time, it's normalization. The situations in this book, it's not exclusive to the LGBTQIA community. It's not exclusive to the straight community. We all have messy relationships when we're teenagers and have no idea what's going on. When you're 17, you do not understand the decisions you make when your hormones are making the decisions for you. And that's the same for everyone. And that's why I like stuff like this, because this has a very gay bent to it. It does touch on some historical things and terminology for people that are new to some of these concepts, but I also appreciate that it's extremely vulgar, because most kids of the younger generation that I talk to also use as many bad words as I do in regular life. Gives it a little bit of authenticity, because I mean, I remember getting in trouble for speech in high school, just like anyone else.
For sure. I remember my friends group, use swear words, just as much as adults.
The art in it is excellent. I like how they do a very good job of differentiating between characters, because there isn't really, it's black and white with just with pink accenting, and that's literally it. Sometimes in books like that, I get confused with a large ensemble cast, which this one has. The line work in this is very clear, very good. You can absolutely tell characters from a distance, usually based on their haircuts. So that's something that I really appreciated. The layout gets confusing because you'll notice like this is your standard kind of left-right paneling, but you get some very creative establishing shots. And yeah, and sometimes it can get confusing, at least as far as going sequentially, but it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to catch up with. Like you'll see some stuff like this. But yeah, this was just a fun one. It was kind of funny. I do like how she does end up standing up for herself at one point, which is what you hope from anybody who's in a relationship with a narcissist. But yeah, it's a neat one, and it just shows that there are many, many ways to live your life, many, many ways that you have no control over, and some things are truly universal, like dating the absolute wrong people when you're 17.
Agreed.
Yep. So that's those are the ones that I read. I did want to squeak in one quick mention. It's too popular of a comic I felt to focus on, but as always, guys, if you are running out of something to read for Pride, just reread Drama by Raina Telgemeier, especially if you've got wee ones and they're already reading it or they already have a copy. Go sneak into their room and get it and read it. It's still good, still holds up.
Lumberjanes is another one that I feel like is really popular at this point. And it's really similar to Backstagers, except, instead of at school, they're at camp. So that's another one that would be really great. Yeah. Okay. So we want to remind everyone that we are going to be having a live comic discussion on August 13th. And very soon we are going to send out a poll about, so you can help us choose which one we're going to read. We'll have a choice of 4 that you can choose from. So keep your eye open for that.
And as always, if you've read anything that you really like or anything that fits this theme, go ahead and post it in the comments. There are too many books, not enough time. So anything that helps us, even librarians, need a little hand sifting through the piles and piles and piles of books that we go through every day. So,
right.
But otherwise, I will see you guys soon.
All right. Happy reading, everyone.
Bye-bye.